Eli sat quietly at the edge of the colony, looking out at the empty sky. Life had been peaceful for years on this small planet, away from the busy cities and crowded spaceports. The humans who lived here were happy in their quiet routine, farming and building with no major troubles to deal with. Eli had always preferred this peaceful life. It was simple, but it was his dot. He was working on some repairs to his small transport ship when the strange sound reached his ears. It was a low, rumbling noise like thunder, but without the storm. He looked up at the sky, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. Then he saw it, a bright light streaking across the sky, falling fast. Eli's heart raced. A ship? No, it couldn't be. He grabbed his tools and rushed to the field where he thought it might land. The light grew larger, and he could feel the heat from it as it crashed not far from his position. The ground shook with the force of the impact, sending dust and rocks flying into the air. He ran toward the site of the crash, his mind racing. What kind of ship was it? Who was inside? He had never seen anything like it before. The ship wasn't human. It was unlike anything he had ever imagined. When Eli reached the wreckage, he was shocked. The ship was badly damaged, its outer hull twisted and broken. He cautiously approached, peering inside the dark opening. The air smelled of burning metal and something else. Something he couldn't place. Then he saw her. A figure was lying on the floor of the ship, unconscious but alive. Her skin was a pale blue, glowing faintly in the dim light. Her long hair was dark, flowing like silk around her face. She wore strange, unfamiliar clothing that looked both beautiful and functional. She looked different, but there was something familiar about her, something that made Eli want to help her. Eli quickly moved closer, his hands shaking. He didn't know what to do. She was clearly not human, but she was hurt. She needed help. "Hey," he called gently, kneeling beside her. "Can you hear me?" The alien woman stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Her gaze was confused, wild even, but there was a moment of recognition as she locked eyes with Eli. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Where ... Am I?" she asked, her voice strained, full of uncertainty. Eli felt a surge of responsibility. "You're on Earth in the colony. I found you after your ship crashed. Are you hurt?" She tried to sit up, wincing in pain. "I don't remember." "Everything is ... hazy?" Eli helped her sit up slowly. "You're safe here. Just rest for now. I'll get you some water." He left her for a moment, running back to his small home to grab what he could. As he returned with water and a blanket, the alien woman was still sitting, but now she looked more aware, though still confused. Her eyes were wide as she looked around the area, taking in the strange environment. "Where is my ship?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Eli paused, unsure of how to answer. "It's gone. It crashed." She looked down at her hands, as though trying to remember something. "I don't understand. I was ... sent on a mission, but everything is ... dust." Eli was still trying to make sense of it all. "You're from space, right? A ship from your people?" She nodded slowly, then winced as if the movement hurt her head. "Yes, I am Solara. I do not know what happened to my crew or my ship. Everything is gone. All I have left is..." This, Eli could see the fear in her eyes. She wasn't just lost, she was completely alone. He had heard of aliens in stories, but seeing one in person was something else. She was beautiful in a way he couldn't describe. But she was also hurt, vulnerable, and confused. There was no way he could just leave her here. "We'll figure this out," Eli said, more to himself than to her. "You're not alone, I'll help you." Solara seemed to study him for a moment, her eyes searching his face, looking for something trust. Maybe, after a long silence, she spoke again. "You would help me?" she asked, her voice soft but filled with a strange emotion Eli couldn't quite place. He nodded without hesitation. "Of course. You're not from around here, but you're not alone?" Her eyes softened, and for a moment Eli thought he saw something like gratitude in them. But it was quickly replaced by confusion. "I do not know how to return to my people," she whispered. "I do not remember how to control my ship, or even why I was sent here." Eli thought for a moment. He didn't have the answers, But he couldn't leave her like this, stranded and alone. "We'll figure it out together." As he spoke, something strange stirred within him. He felt drawn to her, as if an invisible force was connecting them in a way he couldn't understand. But one thing was clear: he couldn't just walk away. "Thank you," Solara whispered, her voice barely audible. Eli gave her a reassuring smile. "Don't mention it. We'll get through this." But deep down, he knew that this encounter, this alien woman who had crashed into his world, was going to change everything. And somehow he felt as if it had already begun. Eli spent the next few days taking care of Solara. He made sure she was comfortable and that she had everything she needed. At first, she was quiet, often lost in thought, staring into the distance as though trying to remember something important. Her memories were blurry, like pieces of a broken puzzle that she couldn't put together. Did his best to keep her company, telling her about his life on Earth, about the colony, and how things worked in this quiet corner of the galaxy. At first, Solara seemed distant, almost cold, as if she wasn't sure how to react to the things Eli told her. But over time, she began to open up, asking questions about his world, about humans, and about emotions. "Tell me," she said one afternoon, sitting beside Eli on the porch of his small house, "what does it mean to feel?" Eli looked at her in surprise. "Feel? I mean, emotions, happiness, sadness, love, fear, things like that. They're what make us human." Solara's eyes were wide with curiosity. "And you deal these things all the time?" Eli nodded. "Yeah, I guess you could say that. Sometimes it's overwhelming, sometimes it's just a little thing. But emotions are part of who we are. They make us alive." Solara's expression was unreadable. She had always been part of a race that valued logic over feeling. Her people, the Xerians, had no room for emotions. They lived by reason and order, never allowing their hearts to cloud their judgment. Yet as she sat beside Eli, she couldn't help but feel something she had never known before, a strange warmth in her chest that seemed to grow stronger every day. "How do you control these feelings?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Eli thought for a moment. "Well, it's not always easy. Sometimes emotions can get in the way, especially when things are tough, but they also make us stronger, more connected. They help us understand each other." Solara looked down at her hands. She didn't understand. Emotions were foreign to her, something she had been taught to suppress. And yet, ever since she had met Eli, she felt as if something inside her was changing, waking up in ways she couldn't explain. Over the next few days, the bond between them deepened. Eli showed her the small things about his world: how to plant crops, how to repair machines, and even how to enjoy the simple pleasures of life. Solara found herself laughing at the little things, something she had never done before. For the first time in her life, she felt alive. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Solara stood outside, her eyes watching the stars. Eli joined her, and for a moment neither of them spoke. The silence between them was comfortable, as though they had both found peace in each other's company. "Eli," Solara said suddenly, her voice soft but firm, "I don't know why, but I feel connected to you. I feel something I've never felt before." Eli looked at her, his heart racing. He had been feeling it too, this pull between them, this connection that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. He had tried to ignore it, to pretend it was just his imagination, but deep down he knew it was real. "I feel it too, Solara," Eli admitted. "I don't know what it is, but I can't ignore it anymore." Solara turned to face him, her eyes searching his face. "Do you think it's dangerous?" Eli hesitated. "I don't know. But I know that I can't walk away from it. I care about you, Solara." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Solara felt a flutter in her chest, something she had never experienced before. Her people didn't know. Love didn't understand it. But here, with Eli, she was beginning to understand what it meant to feel something so powerful. "So real, Eli," Solara whispered. "I don't know what's happening to me. I've never felt anything like this before. It's overwhelming." Eli stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. I don't have all the answers, but I'm not going anywhere. We'll figure this out together. For the first time in her life, Solara felt safe. She had always been taught that emotions were a weakness, that they made people vulnerable. But with Eli, she felt strength in her feelings, a strength that came from being open, from allowing herself to care for someone else. That night, as they sat under the stars, Solara felt something shift inside her. She realized that she was no longer the same person who had crash-landed on this strange planet. She had changed, and it was all because of Eli. He had shown her a new world, a world where emotions weren't something to be feared, but something to be embraced. As the days went on, Solara's memories slowly began to return. She remembered fragments of her past, of her mission, of the cold, logical world she had come from. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the feelings she had for Eli. They were too strong, too real. One evening, as they walked through the fields together, Solara stopped and turned to him. Double quotes, Eli, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. What if my people find out about this? What if they don't understand? What if they take me back? Eli took her hand, his grip firm. We'll face it together, no matter what. I won't let anyone take you away from me, Solara. She looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity in his gaze. And for the first time in her life, she believed it. She believed in him. And she believed in the feelings that had blossomed inside her, feelings she never thought she'd experience. Her heart, body, and soul were now bound to him, and she couldn't imagine life without him. Over the next few weeks, Eli and Solara's bond deepened in ways neither could explain. The feelings between them were undeniable, a connection that grew stronger with every passing day. What had begun as a simple act of kindness on Eli's part had turned into something far more profound. Now, they were inseparable. Eli continued to teach Solara about life on Earth. She had never experienced the simplicity of everyday life, gardening, fishing, or just walking through the fields. At first, she had difficulty understanding the concept of these small pleasures. Her people, the Xerians, had no need for such things. They valued efficiency and logic above all else. Emotions like joy or sadness had no place in their world. But here, with Eli, she began to see that life wasn't just about surviving, it was about living. One day, as they worked together in the garden, Eli paused and looked over at Solara. You're getting really good at this, he said with a grin, wiping his brow. Solara smiled softly, though her smile was still a little uncertain. I'm learning. I never thought I'd enjoy something like this. Eli chuckled. I told you, there's something special about Earth. It's not all about the big things like battles or missions. Sometimes it's the small moments that matter most. She turned to look at him, her gaze softening. You're right, she said quietly. I never understood that before. But now, I feel different. Eli's heart skipped a beat. He had felt it too, the change in both of them. He hadn't realized how much he had come to care for Solara, how much she had become a part of his life. He had always been alone, living a solitary existence, but now, with her by his side, everything had changed. I'm glad you're here, Eli said sincerely. I'm glad I met you. Solara's eyes widened a little at his words. Eli, I don't know what's happening to me, she said softly. I've never felt like this before. My people, they would never understand. Eli took a step closer to her. I don't know what your people would think, but I do know that. I want to be here for you. I care about you, Solara. More than I ever thought I could. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Solara looked down, her thoughts racing. She had never been taught to feel such things, to allow herself to care for another. But here, with Eli, it felt right. She couldn't deny it any longer. I care about you too, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Eli's heart swelled with emotion at her words. He reached out, gently touching her arm. Then let's figure this out together. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. For the first time since she had arrived on Earth, Solara felt like she belonged. With Eli, she wasn't just a lost alien. She was someone important. She had a place in his life, and he had a place in hers. The thought brought warmth to her chest, something she had never experienced before. As the days passed, their relationship continued to evolve. Their bond grew stronger, and the line between friendship and something more began to blur. They spent long hours together, talking about everything and nothing, laughing at silly jokes and sharing quiet moments. Their connection was undeniable, and the chemistry between them became more intense with every passing day. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Solara stood by the edge of the garden, looking out over the vast landscape. Eli joined her, standing a little behind her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was comfortable, filled only with the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. "Eli," Solara said, her voice soft but serious, "do you think this is real, what we have?" Eli was silent for a moment, thinking carefully about his answer. "I don't know, Solara, but I know it feels real to me. I can't explain it, but I feel like I've known you forever." Solara turned to face him, her eyes searching his face. "I feel it too. I never thought I could feel this way. I've always been taught that emotions were a weakness, but with you, it's different." Eli reached out and gently took her hand in his. "It's not a weakness, Solara. It's what makes us human. It's what makes us strong." The warmth in Solara's chest spread at his words. She had never thought she could experience love, not the way humans did. But now, with Eli, it felt like she was learning a new way of living, a way that included feeling everything, both the joy and the pain. And somehow, it felt right. "I don't know what will happen when my people find out," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know what they will do." "We'll face it together," Eli replied, his voice filled with certainty. "I won't let anything happen to you, Solara. We'll figure this out, no matter what." The promise in his voice made Solara's heart flutter. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was truly seen, truly understood. She wasn't just an alien from another world. She was a person with hopes and fears, dreams and desires. And with Eli by her side, she felt like she could face anything. As they stood there, hand in hand, watching the sunset together, Solara realized something. She didn't have all the answers. She didn't know what the future held or what her people would say about the bond she shared with Eli. But one thing was certain: she wasn't alone anymore. And that was enough. The days following their conversation by the garden were filled with a quiet tension that neither Eli nor Solara could ignore. While the bond between them continued to grow stronger, a shadow loomed over their newfound peace. Solara's memories, though returning in bits and pieces, still seemed incomplete. One thing, however, was clear: her people, the Xyrians, would eventually find her. And when they did, the life she was building with Eli would be in serious danger. Solara spent most of her days lost in thought, often gazing out over the horizon, her mind far away. It wasn't just the memories that haunted her. It was the growing awareness that her choice between Eli and her people was inevitable. She had always been taught to value her mission above all else. Emotions, attachments, they were distractions, weaknesses. But now, with Eli, she was beginning to understand what it meant to truly care for someone, to feel something beyond logic and reason. Eli, too, felt the weight of the situation. He knew that their time together was limited. Every day, he feared the arrival of Solara's people, the cold, logic-driven beings who wouldn't understand their bond. Yet, despite the uncertainty, he refused to back away. He had never been one to run from challenges, and this was no different. One afternoon, as they worked together to repair the small transport ship Eli had used for his travels, Solara spoke. "Up, Eli," she said quietly. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about us facing things together. But what if ... what if I have to leave? What if my people demand that I return?" Eli paused, his wrench still in hand. He had been waiting for this conversation, though he wasn't sure how to approach it. "Solara," he said, turning to face her, "you know I want to be with you. But I understand that you have your people, your mission. I won't stand in the way of that." Solara's eyes darkened and she shook her head. "I don't know who I am anymore. Part of me wants to. stay here with you. But another part of me feels like I've abandoned my duty. I was sent here for a reason. My people, they depend on me. Eli stepped closer to her, gently placing his hand on hers. I don't want to ask you to choose between me and your people, but I do want you to know that you're not alone. If you decide to stay, I'll be here. If you decide to go, I'll support you. Solara looked down at their hands, the warmth of his touch bringing comfort and pain at the same time. She didn't know what to do. Her people would never understand her feelings for Eli. They would see it as a weakness, something that needed to be corrected. And yet the thought of leaving him behind made her heart ache in a way she had never experienced before. Eli, she said softly, her voice trembling, I've never felt this way before. I've never had to make a choice like this. Back home, emotions didn't matter. We lived by logic, by reason. But here, with you, it's different. I don't know how to explain it, but I don't want to leave. Eli's heart raced as he listened to her words. He had known this was coming, but hearing her say it made everything feel so much more real. He could see the conflict in her eyes, the struggle between duty and love. He knew that whatever choice she made would shape their future. You don't have to make a decision right now, Eli said softly. Take your time. But no, whatever you choose, I'll respect it. And I'll always be here for you. Solara nodded, though she didn't feel as though she had all the answers. She felt torn between two worlds, one where she was a dutiful Xerian, serving her people and her mission, and another where she was simply Solara, a woman who had found love and peace in the most unexpected place that night as they sat together. Watching the stars, Solara found herself thinking about her past, about the life she had left behind. She remembered the cold, emotionless halls of the Xerian homeworld, where everything was planned and calculated. There had been no room for feelings, no room for love. And now, on Earth, she was experiencing everything she had never known. World filled with emotions, connection, and warmth. The stars above twinkled brightly, reminding Solara of the universe beyond, of the vastness of space and the many unknowns that lay ahead. She didn't know what would happen when her people arrived, but she knew one thing for certain. She couldn't go back to the way things were. She had changed, and it was because of Eli. Because of love, Eli, she whispered, her voice barely audible in the quiet night. I don't want to go back to the way I was. I don't want to be alone anymore. Eli turned to her, his heart swelling with emotion. You're not alone, Solara. I'll always be here, no matter what. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at him, her heart aching with the weight of the decision that loomed ahead. But I don't know if I can stay. I don't know if I can abandon everything I've been taught. Eli took her hands in, his squeezing them gently. You don't have to abandon who you are, Solara, but you don't have to give up on love either. You've learned something new here, something important. It's okay to feel. It's okay to choose your own path. For the first time in days, Solara felt a sense of clarity. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew that she wasn't ready to give up on the life she had built with Eli. Not yet. I don't know what my people will say, she whispered, but I do know that I want to be with you. Eli smiled softly, his eyes filled with warmth. Then we'll face whatever comes together? We'll figure it out? The choice had not been made, but in that moment, Solara knew what her heart truly desired. And for the first time, that was enough. The days after Solara's confession were filled with an uneasy silence. Though Eli and Solara continued their daily routine, there was a constant tension in the air. Every time they shared a quiet moment together, the shadow of the inevitable loomed over them. Solara still hadn't made up her mind about what to do. The weight of her past and the responsibilities to her people pressed heavily on her heart. And yet the feelings she had for Eli were undeniable. Eli had given her space, allowing her to think and process everything in her own time. He knew that the decision she had to make wasn't an easy one. She was torn between two worlds, the one she had known all her life, where emotions were seen as a weakness, and the one she had found with him, a world where feelings were embraced. And where love could exist freely. It wasn't just about staying with Eli or returning to her people. It was about who she was now, who she had become since meeting him. Every day she felt herself changing, growing in ways she had never imagined, and it frightened her. What if her people didn't accept the person she had become? What if they saw her emotions as a betrayal of everything they stood for? But as the days passed, Solara found herself unable to push away the feelings she had for Eli. They had become an essential part of her life, a part of who she was now, and the thought of losing him hurt in a way she couldn't ignore. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Solara looked at Eli, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "Eli," she said softly, "I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can leave everything behind." Eli watched her, his heart aching for her. He knew how much this decision meant to her. "I don't want to make you choose between us," he said quietly. "But I also don't want you to feel like you have to go back to something that no longer feels right." Solara looked down at her hands, her thoughts a whirlwind. "I was raised to believe that emotions were a weakness. We were taught to control them, to bury them. I never thought that I would feel something like this. And now it's as if I'm being torn apart. My people. They won't understand." Eli reached out and gently took her hand. "They don't have to understand, Solara. What matters is what you feel, what's in your heart. I can't tell you what to do, but I know that I don't want to lose you." Her heart ached at his words. She had never felt so conflicted. She had always followed the path set out for her by her people, but now she realized that path had led her to a place where she felt empty, where she had been denied the very thing that made life worth living. Love. And now love had found her. In the most unexpected way. "I don't know if I can leave them," Solara whispered, her voice filled with doubt. "They'll think I've abandoned my duty. They won't understand why I would choose this life over the one I was born into." Eli gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. "You're not abandoning your duty, Solara. You're choosing to live the life that makes you happy. And if you stay with me, I promise you won't be alone. We'll build a future together, no matter what." Solara looked up at him, her eyes filled with emotion. For the first time in her life, she felt like she had a choice. She had always been taught to follow orders, to think only of her people and their mission. But now, in this quiet corner of the universe, she had the chance to choose her own path. And the thought of walking that path with Eli made her heart swell with hope. The wind whispered through the trees, and the stars above twinkled like distant beacons. In that moment, everything seemed to come into focus. Solara realized that the fear she had been carrying was not the fear of making the wrong choice. It was the fear of finally allowing herself to be vulnerable, to truly love and be loved. "Eli," she said, her voice trembling, "I want to stay. I want to be with you. I don't want to go back to a life without love, without feeling. I don't know what will happen next, but I know that I don't want to lose this us." Eli's heart soared at her words. He reached out and pulled her into an embrace, holding her close. "You don't have to worry about losing me. I'll always be here, Solara, and together we'll face whatever comes." Tears welled up in Solara's eyes as she clung to him. For the first time, she felt like she was truly home. She didn't need to go back to a life that didn't allow her to feel. She had found something far more precious: love, companionship, and the promise of a future filled with hope. As they sat there in the warmth of the fire, surrounded by the vastness of the universe, Solara knew that she had made the right choice. It wasn't about her people or her mission anymore. It was about her and Eli, about the love they shared and the life they would build together. And for the first time in her life, she was truly free. The decision had been made. Solara had chosen to stay with Eli. The choice, though difficult, felt right. She no longer had to hide her emotions or suppress the connection she felt with him. Yet, even with this clarity, she knew the consequences would not be easy to face. Her people, the Xyrians, would not simply accept her decision. They would demand answers. And when they came, the consequences could be severe. Eli knew this too. He had seen the fear in Solara's eyes when she admitted her decision. He had seeing how torn she was, but now there was no turning back. They had made a choice and they would stand by it. But neither of them had expected how soon the consequences would come. It was one quiet evening when the change began. Eli and Solara had just finished a meal and were sitting outside, watching the stars above. It was a peaceful moment, one they had come to cherish. But the calmness was shattered by the sudden roar of engines in the distance. Eli's heart skipped a beat as he stood up, instinctively reaching for the tools he kept nearby for emergencies. "What is that?" Solara asked, her eyes narrowing as she looked toward the horizon. "Not good," Eli muttered under his breath. He had recognized the sound of Xerian ships, familiar, heavy, and unmistakable. The Xerians had arrived. They didn't have much time. "We need to hide," Eli said urgently. "They'll come looking for you. If they find us, they'll take." "You back, no questions asked?" Solara stood quickly, her heart racing. The reality of the situation hit her like a punch to the gut. Her people were here. They were here to take her away, to strip away everything she had come to know, everything she had chosen. She couldn't go back to the cold, emotionless world she had left behind. Not now. Number T when she had finally found something worth fighting for. "Eli," she said, her voice trembling, "I can't go back." "I won't go back, I know," Eli replied, his voice filled with determination. "And you won't have to." Together, they ran toward the ship that Eli had been working on, the one he had kept in case of an emergency. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get them off the ground, to escape before the Xerians could land and take them both. Solara's mind raced as they climbed into the small ship. She had never thought it would come to this, never imagined that she would have to fight to keep the life she had chosen. But now it was clear this was their battle. "Hold on," Eli said, his hands moving quickly as he powered up the ship. The engines roared to life, the small vessel shaking as it lifted off the ground. The sky above was dark, the stars barely visible against the blackness of the night. As they ascended, Solara looked back down at the colony. The place that had been her refuge, her home, now felt so distant, so out of reach. She felt a pang in her chest. She had never realized how much she had grown attached to this world, to the life she had built with Eli. But there was no time for regret. There was only the future, and the future was with him. "We have to get to the edge of the system," Eli said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "If we can make it there, we might have a chance to hide. We can regroup and figure out what to do next." Solara nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. "But what about them? The Xerians?" "They won't stop until they find me." "I know," Eli said grimly. "But we're not going down without a fight." "I'll protect you, Solara. I promised you that." They both knew the gravity of their situation. The Xerians were a powerful race, their ships far more advanced than anything humans had. But it wasn't just their strength that made them dangerous. It was their lack of empathy, their coldness. They wouldn't hesitate to take Solara by force if they had to. As they neared the edge of the system, the lights of the Xerian ships grew brighter in the distance. Solara's breath caught in her throat. The battle was coming, and she couldn't escape it. Double quotes, "Eli, are you sure we can outrun them?" Solara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We have to try," he said, his grip tightening on the controls. "We have to make them believe we're not here. We'll hide in the asteroid field. If we're lucky, we can lose them." Solara nodded, her heart full of fear, but also a strange sense of resolve. She had made her choice, and now there was no turning back. She was fighting for her future, for the life she had chosen with Eli. And no matter what happened, she wouldn't let them take that away from her. The ship sped toward the asteroid field, weaving between massive rocks and debris. The Xerian ships followed, their engines glowing in the darkness, ready to chase down their target. Solara and Eli could hear the faint hum of their pursuers behind them, but they didn't slow down. They had to move faster, push further into the unknown. They had to fight for their lives, for their love. The battle was just beginning. The asteroid field ahead was a maze of floating rocks and debris, a perfect hiding place for anyone trying to escape. But Solara and Eli knew it wouldn't be easy. The Xerian ships were powerful, relentless, and fast. Every move they made had to count. They couldn't afford any mistakes. Eli's hands gripped the controls of the ship tightly as he maneuvered. Through the field. The ship bounced slightly as it dodged large asteroids, and Solara held on, her heart pounding in her chest. The glow of the Xerian ships was growing brighter behind them, signaling they were getting closer. The sound of their engines reverberated through the cockpit, and Solara could feel the tension in the air. "Eli, they're getting closer," Solara said, her voice strained. "We need to find a way to lose them." Eli didn't reply at first. His eyes were focused on the control panel, scanning for anything that could help them. He knew they were running out of time. If the Xerians caught up to them, they wouldn't hesitate to destroy the ship. They would take Solara back, no matter the cost. "We can't outrun them forever," Eli said finally, his voice calm but full of determination. "We'll have to fight." Solara's heart skipped a beat at his words. She had never been in a real battle before. Her people were trained to think logically, not to fight with emotion. And yet, here she was, ready to stand beside Eli, ready to protect the life they had built together. "What do we do?" Solara asked, her voice steady despite the fear growing inside her. "We have to fight back," Eli said, looking over at her. "We'll use the asteroid field to our advantage. I've got some weapons on board, but we'll have to be smart about this." "We can't just charge in blindly," Solara nodded, her resolve hardening. She had made her choice, and now she would fight for it. She would fight for the life she had chosen with Eli, and for the love that had transformed her. "Let's do it," she said firmly. Eli's eyes lit up with determination as he prepared the ship. He started by using the field to hide their ship, steering it behind a large asteroid. The Xerian ships followed, unaware of their location for a moment. It was their chance. "Get ready," Eli said. "We're going to make our move." In one swift motion, Eli turned the ship sharply, emerging from behind the asteroid and speeding straight toward one of the Xerian ships. The sudden movement took the Xerians by surprise, but they quickly adjusted, firing their weapons at the ship. The energy blasts hit the shields of the small transport ship, shaking them both in their seats. "Hold on!" Eli shouted as he skillfully navigated the ship, dodging more fire and returning a few blasts of his own. The ship shook again as another blast hit, but their shields held strong. Solara's heart raced as she grabbed the nearest weapon, a small blaster she had never used before. Her hands were shaking, but her determination kept her steady. She knew this wasn't just about them anymore. This was about standing up for what they believed in, about showing that love could conquer even the coldest of forces. "Eli, I'm ready," Solara said, her voice strong now. "Good," Eli said, focusing on the enemy ship. "We're going to disable their weapon systems first. If we can do that, we can get away." He fired the ship's weapons, and Solara watched as the Xerian ship's shields flickered. They had hit a weak spot. They were making progress. "Keep going, Eli," Solara shouted as she aimed her blaster at a second Xerian ship, her hand steady now. The beam hit its target, causing the enemy ship to shudder. "Nice shot," Eli said with a grin. "Now let's finish this." The battle raged on, with both sides exchanging fire, each trying to outmaneuver the other. The Xerian ships were fast and powerful, but the asteroid field worked in their favor, giving them the opportunity to strike from unexpected angles. Despite the danger, Solara and Eli worked together seamlessly, each one anticipating the other's moves. Finally, after what felt like hours, the Xerians began to retreat. Their ships were damaged, their weapons disabled, and their will to chase diminished. Eli took one last shot, hitting the lead ship in the engines and sending it spinning out of control. "We did it," Solara said, breathing a sigh of relief. She looked at Eli, her heart swelling with pride. They had won, and they had done it together. "Yeah," Eli said, his face tired but filled with satisfaction. "But it's not over yet." "We've got to keep moving," Solara nodded. The Xerians wouldn't give up easily. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. "We'll keep going," she said, her voice full of confidence. "We'll face whatever comes, together." Eli smiled at her, his heart swelling with love and admiration. Together, he agreed. As they flew away from the battlefield, the stars above shining brightly, Solara knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But with Eli by her side, she was ready for whatever challenges they would face. They had fought for their love, and they had won. And that was just the beginning.